This podcast has bad words.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Minimalist Podcast, where we discuss what it means to live a meaningful life with less. My name's Joshua Fields Milburn.
And I'm Ryan Nicodemus, and together we are the Minimalists.
Welcome to episode 171. Today we're going to talk about independence. We're going to talk about rejection. We're going to talk about creating meaningful work without gatekeepers. And who better to do that with than a comedian? So we have a special guest in the studio today. Andrew Schulz is with us. Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah, man. Thanks for being here, dude.
Of course.
So Andrew, if you're not familiar with the format of the show, basically we don't do interviews. We don't usually have guests on. What we do is we help people answer their questions. When we do bring someone on, it's to, instead of just interrogate you, let's look at your worldview with respect to some people's questions.
Cool.
So we've got some questions today about independence, about rejection, about creating meaningful work without gatekeepers. And that first question today is a voicemail from Vida in Norway.
How should I prioritize between my creativity and my university degree? To give a little background, I'm a very creative person who loves taking pictures, writing, drawing, hand lettering, knitting, and so on. I feel like this is truly my passion, but something my father said to me once has stuck with me. He said, "Don't make a living out of your hobby, that takes the fun out of it." And this has kept me from trying to make a living out of my creative side, which is one of the reasons why I'm currently taking a degree in national economics to make a living out of that. While I like my subjects, I've been inspired by listening to you guys talking about adding value to people's lives, and I am sort of second-guessing my choice because that's what I feel like I'm doing when I'm creating art. However, the money aspect of actually making a living of my art also terrifies me. Do you have any tips?
Yeah, I think it's really sad that we have to talk about this, where it's how do I prioritize my creativity and my university degree?
Yeah.
It's like, fuck, we do so much. We've been sold this meme of the American dream. I know, or actually, and she's in Norway, so the American dream has permeated their borders. You were over there recently, Andrew, and the thing is, we're given this prescription of how to, I don't know, live a supposedly successful life, and if we do anything outside of that, then man, it's we're doing something we're not supposed to do.
Yeah. Yep. You know, I think like her dad's advice on like, you know, don't make money off of your hobby, like that's a way to kill it. I think he's like halfway right. Yes. And what I mean by that is like if you force yourself to make money from your hobby, you can absolutely kill it. Because I'm assuming when you were like, I'm going to be a comedian, you weren't like, you know what? I'm going to get rich off of telling jokes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you saying like I didn't think that?
Is that what you thought? Or I mean, how did you?
I never cared about money.
Yeah.
You know, and that's
what came first, the money or the jokes?
Oh, definitely the jokes. Still waiting on the money. No, what I think that her father is right in a way. I think what happens is when you start doing your hobby as a job, you find out what it is you really liked about your hobby. And what a lot of people don't like is business.
Right.
And business is business regardless of what it is. It doesn't matter if you're selling, you know, her pictures or if you're, selling a podcast, whatever. There's a business component to anything you do. So you might just not like that. Maybe her father just doesn't like that, you know? So you taking the picture, like me, I love creating comedy. That's my favorite part, creating it, going on stage, making shows for myself and other people. The icing on the cake is when the people see it. Okay, so like it starts from like, oh, what a cool idea. Okay, I'm gonna give it to some people, and if they laugh, that's icing, and then money sprinkles, right?
Yeah.
So it's like I'm starting at what I love about it, and operating as my base point. You know, if you're operating within like the success equals money matrix, you're only gonna be happy when you hit the money amount.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And you're probably not going to be happy then either because
there'll never be enough.
yeah, the money's not going to fulfill you alone.
It's like being a billionaire is so stupid because like the second you become a billionaire, you're the poorest billionaire.
Yeah.
Right? It's like you're but people don't get how dumb they are. Like Jay-Z's like, I want to be the first, the first hip hop billionaire or something like that. It's like, you're ready to be miserable? Are you ready to be the brokest motherfucker at the billionaire meeting? Your whole life trying to be rich, and then once you're a billionaire, you don't want to hang out with these millionaires, these poor motherfuckers, So now you're isolated. You're on this island where you're the brokest billionaire, bragging about your rented jet or whatever the fuck you do with amongst these real wealthy people.
Yeah.
And you can't relate to these other folks.
Yeah.
It's just the worst matrix is defining it by my money. At
Well,
least
it's funny.
for me.
It's funny you say that too about the isolation of it. I have a friend who's a pastor, and he has a decent amount of wealthy congregants. I don't even know what. People who show up to church.
Yeah.
And he said he realizes like quite often they're the ones who will require more attention, not because they have worse problems, but the problem of isolation is one that it's really hard to solve with money because you can surround yourself with people.
Yes.
But you're not surrounding yourself with relationships.
Yes, that's true. But there's two things with that. Is like those people have no hope. That's the thing. Like rich people have no hope. Poor people have the hope that when they become rich, they'll be happy because that's their carrot, right?
Yeah.
So it's like every rich person you talk to, everyone will say money does not make you happy.
Right.
Every poor person you talk to will tell you, once I'm rich, I'm going to be happy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right? So, and it's not either of their fault. It's like you don't know you don't need something until you have it. Right?
Yeah.
Like you don't know that you didn't need a chair for this podcast.
Right.
Right? You know what I mean?
Until you
didn't have it.
Right.
You're like, all right, I guess I'll just stand. You know what I mean? So it's like and that's the perspective with money. It's like I learned once I made money that my lifestyle didn't change from making, $250,000 a year to $500,000 a year. Like nothing changed.
Yeah.
My happiness didn't change. Nothing changed.
I mean, money just solves money problems.
Those are real problems.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
not mitigating what that is. I'm saying after a certain amount, it makes no difference.
Totally agree.
At least for me,
Yeah.
So like you have this situation with these rich people, they don't have hope. They don't have the carrot. They have everything that they thought would make them happy, and they're not.
Yeah.
That's why these rock stars kill themselves.
Yeah.
Why would you not? You know what I mean? Like, your whole life you thought this is what's going to make me happy, and then it didn't.
Well, it's David Foster Wallace said he in one of his books he wrote that most suicides are dead long before they pull the trigger.
Ooh.
That's good.
And the thing you talk about, Ryan, and like in your TED Talk, for example, when you said I was living paycheck to paycheck, but I wasn't really living at all. Like I was alive, but I wasn't living to a certain extent because you were focused on that one very narrow metric. It's one resource, and when we don't have it, it feels much more important than it is. The same is true with virtually any resource that we don't have, though. If we don't have our health, all of a sudden everything crashes down, and that is a real resource that you can't just get back. It's not you can't use other resources to get your health back necessarily.
I think the first instance of that for me was like in the 5th grade when I finally got a pair of Nike Airs, and it was the cheap version of Nike Air. I mean, it wasn't off brand, but it wasn't no Air Jordans,
Yeah.
And it's like I had them and I was happy for about 5 minutes.
And then it goes away.
Yeah, and then it's gone.
Because you didn't. It's like your kid with the magic trick. You didn't want them. You wanted to want them.
Yeah.
See the difference?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the carrot.
Yeah.
Do you know?
Well, we
There's a reason heaven happens when you die. Do you know? It's the carrot. We need the carrot.
Yeah.
Well, most people need the carrot. Like, I think there's different stages. Good question, Vita. I think there's different stages in life, where you operate, and we've all gone through these different stages. And maybe my buddy Raul calls it the vegetable stage. You're going to work, you're coming back home, you're going to work and coming back home, and there's nothing wrong with that. None of these are better than the other. They're just different stages. And next you go into the why stage, right? Which is you start contemplating things like why does this cup have to look like this? Why do I have to eat breakfast in the morning? Why? You start just asking why about weird things in your life, right? And then the next stage is where shit gets tricky. This is where comedy operates, but a lot of creativity operates, is things both are and aren't. Not is or isn't, is and isn't.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
That's a very, like, for me, that's comedy. And that is your
It creates
job.
so much tension too.
It's all the tension.
Right.
Because we want the world to be defined in ways that we can digest it. Either or. No.
Black
Is
and white,
and isn't.
ones and zeros. Whereas no, it's 1 and 0.
That's
here.
it. The MAGA hat is a horrible hat. Is it? Yeah. So is the Viking hat. People wear that. Right? Like, is and isn't.
I first turned Ryan onto your work. You did a stand-up special called 441, and it became an album 551.
Yep.
We'll put a link to that in the show notes. And the thing that you do in there is you create tension. And comedy, I think, is one of two creative places that we can deal with life's most difficult issues. Kafka said, jokes are what we use to talk about life's most difficult issues. And what he meant there was like you can only, when something is so difficult, so complex, so fraught with all this political tension, you see it in the news. There are two places that can deal with it. Jokes, and you did an amazing job in 551 with that. Ryan and I were in Chicago. We had a speaking gig out there, and we're in the airport. I'm like, hey man, you got to listen to this. And like we were sharing earphones like a like a little couple.
High school couple.
Yeah. we had
It's because I'm romantic. That's why.
We had one Coca-Cola with 2 straws. It was great. And we were listening to it, and we were just cracking up in the like O'Hare Airport, man. And like people are looking at us like we are just total idiots. But what you were doing in there is you were talking about fraught topics and distilling it down. The only way that it makes it palatable is through humor, through jokes, through really good jokes, and I think fiction can do that as well. I think
Absolutely. Mark Twain.
Yeah. Zadie Smith she had a short story in the New Yorker recently where she was talking about the Me Too movement, and it's something that if you want to have a debate about that, it's just going to,
too much.
You're throwing, you're throwing feces at each other. Whereas if you write about in fiction, it adds that element of separation.
It's like a cartoon.
Yeah,
You can get everything. You can get away with anything in a cartoon. You can kill Kenny every episode of this kids show.
Yeah.
right.
Like Frozen. That girl is a bitch. Elsa is a fucking twat who tries to kill everybody, and it's like a fun kids movie. You know what I mean? So a cartoon, you can actually say real shit because we're too. You know what it is? It's easier to show than tell. Telling is useless, right? So it's like the cartoon we can show.
Yeah.
And there's that little filter of separation, like this isn't real. And that's what happens with jokes a lot too. It's like if you operate in the silly part of a serious situation, it's like, okay, I can enjoy that. I can take that in.
If you try to approach it like it is real, then you're going to fail. I mean, it's the worst when you have someone ask you, to explain your joke to them.
Oh, it doesn't work.
Right. It's like explaining the magic trick.
Yeah. I won't do it. I won't explain the joke. I'll like explain how we got here, or like I'll explain what I want us to do with the joke.
Yeah.
But I'll never explain like a joke.
This is what it
Now,
means.
you do you actually do this thing on YouTube, your YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/the Andrew Schulz, I
Yes.
believe. We'll put a link to that in the show notes as well. So you have decided to sort of branch out and do your own thing, and you're creating these own shows.
Yeah.
And what I like about this is they don't have to conform to a particular structure where you're like, well, we need 22 minutes with 7-minute commercial breaks, and no, you find what works for the actual material itself. And you do this one show called Inside Jokes. And what you're doing there is you take some comedian friends, you sit down in the restaurant together, and you're not explaining the jokes, but you're taking the most offensive jokes you can't even get to work in front of crowds yet, and you say, all right, let's dissect these together. Let's find the funny in this, because I know there's something here. And if I'm relaying this back to Vita's question, there's probably something here.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is, okay, you have this creative side, but you're also going to school for, what did she say it was, a degree in national economics.
Economics, yeah.
Now my question for you is, how can you apply creativity to that degree? You've done this, Andrew. You started out
Also,
in comedy.
do you need a degree in that in Norway? It's like have oil. It's like be Saudi Arabia with snow. Like that's right. Like, you don't really need to be genius to know the national economic situation in Norway. It's like stick a spike in the ground when that really, really important black liquid seeps up, bottle it, and then sell it to people. You're not doing anything brilliant over there, Norway. Right?
So when you started out in comedy, that was your thing, but then you also found a way to combine that with other things, with just talking on the radio or talking on a podcast.
Yes.
I first discovered you because of Brilliant Idiots.
Right.
I showed up because of Charlemagne, but I
Yes.
stayed because of you.
Hey, let's go.
And I'll tell you what, man, you actually got me to listen to a damn sports podcast
Right.
with your podcast Flagrant 2. So although it's sort of a thinly veiled sports
We
podcast.
call it a sports podcast. It's not.
It's a comedy podcast where you occasionally, toward the end, talk about sports.
But we do that as a veil for like the PC culture. Right? Because I was like, nobody that's angry on Twitter or social justice warrior likes sports. Like that Venn diagram doesn't exist. Right? Like cancel this guy doesn't also like the Eagles. Right? Like so if I call it that, I keep all those people away, and then we can really talk about what we want to talk about. We can be flagrant, we can be, offensive, we can make the jokes that everybody makes in private in a public space. And that's really what everybody has gravitated towards. It's like this 2 hours of normalcy in their week. They're like, fuck, I'm hearing the same jokes that I make with my friends, other people making. I don't feel so lonely. There's this community aspect to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do so in a way where you capture the sentiment of what's going on in sort of people's heads, I think.
Yeah.
And then, you can talk about sports occasionally. And
Yeah.
you can shit on.
The one problem with the sports thing is it does deter the majority of women from showing up. And it's like, these women just aren't really into that sports. I mean, we do have our lady assholes, our
audience, they're called assholes.
The asshole army, right? Because the show is analysis by assholes, right? So, and they do show up, but it is also a filter for them. And there's certain places that have done a great job of like engaging women even in sports content. Like Barstool did a great job, so I got to think of the next thing I got to do is like bring women into the flagrancy, because when they're at the shows they love it. They listen to Brilliant Idiots, they love it, they're there for it. It's just finding a way to tap into them and help them get on board. And that's the next project I'll probably do will be about like decoding the fuck boy.
That's
I
good,
think,
man.
yeah.
That's
I think
good.
that's what it like. Because every couple of years, women need a manual for men. It says the same thing, right? It's like every 2 years, it's like he's not that into you. Every 2 years, there's a new book that says the exact same thing. But I'll do that in a way that's like, hey, I'm going to help you. Not lie to yourself about the dates you're going on.
Yeah, man, I love the recipe that we kind of I feel like we kind of uncovered here a little bit. So, regardless of what Vita does, if she's putting money first with her economics degree or with her art, like that's a problem. It doesn't matter what she inserts there. If money is first, that's going to be an issue.
Especially when it's first by a long shot.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the recipe that I'm seeing here
I'm
is
so angry at Vita. You have nothing to lose.
Yeah.
Vita, you're in Norway. You physically can't be homeless. You physically can't be broke. You can say, I'm not going to work anymore, and the government will give you food and give you shelter.
Yeah.
If there's anybody who should just fucking go for it, everyone in Norway should be an artist. Why you guys do anything else is besides me. I have no clue. I would be a fucking painter if I lived in Norway.
Yeah. Get into oil or get into art over there.
That's
right?
it. It's like you have nothing to lose, Vita. If anything, you stay home. If not, go do your art, and then truly find out what you like about the art. Do you like the creative process? Do you like selling it? You might like selling it.
Yeah.
You might like the hustle. That might be something that interests you. Find your interest. But if you have something that you enjoy doing and you have the opportunity to do it during the day, fucking do it.
Yeah. So,
Jesus.
So here's a recipe I think we got for Vita. Is first, put first what you like. Put first your passion, like cultivating that passion. I don't want to say live your passion. That is like some overrated ass of advice that Josh and I talk about a lot. Yeah. But I think that you should cultivate your passion. That's number one. Number two is solve a problem. So when people are laughing, like you're making them laugh. That is solving a problem for those people. They want to laugh. You give them jokes. And then three is the money. So if you go at it in that order, you're gonna feel way more complete, Vita. If you're just putting money first, like, yeah, that's a problem. Your dad's right. If you want to kill your hobby, just start thinking about how you're going to make money off of art.
That's a great point.
And that's
it.
And
that's how you kill your hobby.
Yeah, that's how you kill your hobby.
Yeah, we did a whole podcast episode with a musician who moved to Nashville to pursue his dream, and when he got down there, he was basically stuck writing corporate jingles. This was Paul from Canyon City. And he's like, it totally destroyed his love for music. And in fact, he had to walk away from it. He went to go work at Home Depot just so he could walk away for a while, walk back to his actual music where the money wasn't first. He wasn't doing it just for the record contract or the paycheck from the radio station. And it changed everything for him. And eventually, as you start solving those problems, as you start making people laugh, the money starts to show up.
Dude, you know how lucky you are, Vita, that you have something you like to do? Like, so few people have things they like to do.
Yeah.
Like, that's why TV exists. Because people don't have things they like to do. Right? They're like, all right, fuck it. I'll just sit here and I'll watch the show because that will distract me from doing nothing, which is what I was going to do before. You have an activity you like to do. You can do it in the day. You can do it at night. You can do it literally 24 hours if you want. You can travel around the world taking pictures. It's like, what a fucking gift that you have something you enjoy. Right?
Yeah,
That's crazy.
Absolutely. Yeah. I can't tell you how many people like they'll send in a question. How do I uncover my passion? How do I find how do I figure out which hobbies I like best? I totally agree. Vita knows what she likes best.
Boom.
She's got it.
It's over. The battle is done or whatever. I don't know what that term is, but you're fine.
What time you got?
You know what time it is. It is time for our lightning round where we answer questions from social media.
Indeed. So, Andrew, the Minimalists, we're on Twitter at the Minimalists and what, Facebook and Instagram. You're at Andrew Schulz on all the relevant platforms.
Yes.
They can find you there. And usually what we do during this lightning round is we answer questions with just a short, shareable, less than 140 character response. But don't worry, we really just ramble on a little bit and hopefully find something to tie it up with. Tie it up with a bow.
Yeah, and if
end.
you can't tie something up with a bow, podcast Sean will tweeze it out for you. And,
Got him.
Make you look good, man.
Yeah. So what's our first question, Ryan?
Our first question is from Bilda. I've created a new product/invention. Congratulations. That's awesome, Bilda. If you were me, how would you go about creating demand for it?
Man, here's the problem. Like, my short answer is a cart has never pulled a horse. And if you're walking around with a solution looking for a problem, that's how you create.
You're the pharmaceutical industry.
Yes, I guess the answer is like clinical trials.
This great drug. I need to make some AIDS so it can cure it.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think the opposite is true. You go out and you solve problems, as Ryan was saying earlier. You look for a problem to solve. You look. My guess is in comedy or in podcasting. Andrew, what do you do with respect to like creating a demand for the podcast? I don't think that even comes up in your
bro.
Right. Your thought process isn't like, I'm gonna create a demand with this podcast.
No. Demands have to exist. That white space has to be there. The white space is what we refer to like a space in the market where nobody's tapped into it just yet. And that's got to exist organically. And you have to hope the thing that you love to do lines up with it. It just so happened, like I've been doing the same comedy for years. Society shifted, right? So then it turned me from a guy who was, edgy, doing this kind of comedy back in the day, to a guy now who's brave. I never looked at myself as brave, but people are like, yo, you do these jokes in this climate? What? That's crazy. So I was like, oh, we need to create a space for this. How do I create a space for this? I need to insulate myself. Make it so that nobody can take anything away from me. Am I dependent on a network? Am I dependent on these different things? I was. Okay, create independence. Podcast, Patreon, etc. Okay, I've got a little bubble. I've got the crew. I've got everything. Now I can really put out the content. And what are they going to do? Cancel me? They can't. They don't have anything to cancel. Right? So it's like, if you have a solution, I guess she said. I don't know what she said. She said,
so Bella says, I created a new product/invention. How do I go about creating demand?
So yeah, she's got a
for it?
solution.
If you have a solution, then there should be a problem. The demand is already there. If you have a solution, there's a demand. All you need to do is give it to somebody.
Yeah.
Give it to someone who has the problem. What's the product? Does she say?
No.
She's worried we'll take it or something like that. That happens.
That's what we do. We take her invention and produce it on a mass scale as the Minimalist.
At the Minimalist.
But you know what, man? It's like when I think about when Josh and I first started this, like we hated our jobs and we were like, get us out of here.
Yeah.
So we came across minimalism, and it helped us to kind of reprioritize where we were focusing all our resources, not just money, but time, energy, attention, all of that. We didn't go from, oh, okay, yeah, minimalism. All right, dude, now what are the top 20 things we can do to make money?
Right.
It wasn't product first and then create demand. It was, oh, okay, we're going to do a blog. People keep asking for a book. Well, shit, we are the minimalists. Maybe we should write a book on minimalism.
Yes.
Okay, so then we wrote a book on minimalism.
Right.
And so forth and so on. That's how we've done this whole thing. It's never been, again, cart before the horse. Cliches are a cliche for a reason. Here's my pithy answer is creations that add value will forge their own demands. So it doesn't matter to Andrew's point. It's like when you are doing something you love, do it because you love it. And hope to God that there's a demand for it. But here's the thing: there's over 7 billion people in the world. The good news is like some of them are probably on the same page as you.
Yeah.
So the best-selling books of any year. So you go back to last year, the absolute bestsellers, the books that sold the most units out of all of them, the breakaway. Oh my God, I'll never be able to sell that many books. Reach less than 2% of the population.
Yeah, that's great.
Oh, and by the way, it was years after we published that book.
Well, no, I'm not talking about our books.
I
mean, our books would never sell the as much as maybe like these 7 million. No, I'm saying the best of the bestsellers.
Barely touch any.
Yeah. We're somewhere in the middle of the bestseller list. the best of the bestsellers.
Yeah.
They only touch 2% of the people.
Yeah.
And that's actually
great point.
good news because that means there's a market and you don't even have to touch 2%. You can find someone that your product is for.
Yeah.
What's our next question, Ryan?
Our next question is from Austin. Austin, how do you get minimally rejected?
I think it's the wrong question.
You minimally ask for shit.
Just sit around, watch TV, and don't do anything.
Based on what you ask for.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If like you're asking, hey man, can I have a little more room in my seat? Like that's not a big thing. So even if the guy says no, it's like it's not a big deal if he says no.
But we flinch as if it is.
Yeah.
I think that the flinch is even bigger, don't you think? If you said, hey man, could I have the aisle seat?
Oh yeah. It is. But so there are degrees of flinching for sure.
Yes.
But I think we flinch like I don't want this person to dislike me.
Yeah.
And you have mastered that because you have to get on stage every night.
Yeah.
And you seek rejection in a way because occasionally you're working on new material, something that is for sure going to bomb.
Yeah.
Or you're going to say it the wrong way. Or maybe you come up after someone and the energy is different.
Yeah.
And you're working hard to make it your own. Sure, there's going to be some rejection there. And I think if we avoid rejection, we avoid something more meaningful.
Yeah.
And you have to, in a way, seek it out.
Yeah.
And man, that's really difficult because of that flinch, right?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, rejection is a very interesting thing. I wish I could sit here and say I've conquered it. I haven't conquered it. There's times where I feel, some people might look at me like, "Wow, you've really surpassed rejection. You're invincible because you don't care about being rejected." There's times where like I'm in an elevator and I want to ask somebody something. I'm like, let me not bother them. Probably on some level because I'm like, what if they have an attitude? Then I got to address this attitude and this, that, the other. I will say this though.
But you're having so that's funny, the elevator thing. You're having an imaginary fight with like
In my head,
a future version of
That's just 'cause
yourself.
you're from New York, man.
It might be. It really might be. It is. But I will say this: that rejection is the greatest thing that's ever happened to me in my career.
Amen.
It has given me my career. Everything great from my career has come from rejection.
Talk about that.
Everything.
Like what?
I made this comedy special, 441, which is originally an hour-long special, and I'm sure you guys have heard this story before that I've told on the podcast. But and I tried to sell it to all the networks. All of them said no, and it was the lowest time in my career. I was like, am I not doing comedy right? Like, what's going on? Why is the industry never opened their arms to me, never opened the doors? Like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I'm good at this shit. And I said, you know what? Fuck it. This is good. I'm going to put out a smaller version. And the reason I decided to put a smaller version out is because I would ask friends that were not comedians about comedy. You can learn so much about your own industry from asking people who know nothing about it. And I'd ask them, I'd be like, hey, you watching any comedy? They'd be like, yeah. And I'd be like, who'd you like? And they're like, I like this guy, John Mulaney. It could be anybody, right? Yeah. And then be like, oh, yeah, what'd you like about this? And it was just good, And then they'd all say this. They go, I didn't finish it, but I mean, it was good. They'd all say I didn't finish it. I started like mental spreadsheeting that. I was like, didn't finish it. Okay, so nobody's watching the whole thing. This is good to know. So I go, I'm going to put out a 15-minute special that has 4 of the comedy clubs instead of the 5 that I did, and has the cab rides in between, etc. It's just going to be a 15-minute comedy experience, I call it, but special. I'm going to put it out, and because nobody's watching the whole thing, and I want to leave them, the best meal is the one that you could have one more bite of, right? So I put it out, and like that weekend I sell out some shows in San Diego, and I was like, this is so, and what's so weird is this past weekend, I was just in San Diego at the same club, and I sold out the whole weekend. Nice. So it's interesting to see what's going on. But I saw this one, I was like, I was never a sellout guy. I was like, what the fuck is happening here? And I was in I was in Ohio or Columbus, like a place I don't have any draw. Yeah. And I sold like 1,600 tickets in a weekend. I was like, what the fuck is happening? And I go, okay, I'm doubling down on this content shit. And I started to put a new joke out every single week, every Sunday. And I was like, I'm going to do this for a year, a new joke for a year. And the jokes started to go viral, and my fan base started to blossom, and I started to like sell out these shows. And I realized, oh shit, the game has changed. And nobody knows it yet. Yeah. But I just figured out that it changed. So I'm sitting here. It's like finding fucking the metal in Wakanda. Do you know what I mean? Like the black vibranium or some shit like that. And I'm just like, I'm holding it. I'm like, oh my God, nobody knows. And everything starts to make sense to me. I start to go, would anybody listen to anything that's an hour if you didn't know them? Like, would you listen to anyone talk for an hour if you didn't know them? Like, if somebody said, hey man, check out this guy Dave Johnson, it's an hour long, watch it. You'd be like, are you fucking crazy?
No. I mean, it would take some sort of
otherworldly,
some miracle to make that happen.
You have to pay me.
Yeah. Right. So, and even then I would only do it begrudgingly.
You'd be upset the whole fucking time. So I was like, oh, so specials are done. Because why would I watch a special for an hour? Why would I even risk it? It makes no sense. So I started putting out these clips, and then what I noticed is people would watch a clip and then they'd watch for 2 hours. So people aren't watching your comedy special, but they get lost in my YouTube wormhole for double the time.
Yeah.
Because it's a digestible bite, and it comes right
at a time.
That joke was good. I'll go to the next one.
One bite.
That joke was good. I'll go to the next one.
Even though you're taking a special one bite at a time, you don't know. When you feel the pressure to watch an hour, it's like someone jamming the pizza into your face. This is just, hey, here's a little bagel, pizza bagel. You know what I mean? Like, there you go. And I kept on throwing them out there. And shit exploded, and I started selling tickets, and I would put this stuff on social. I put it on Instagram, and I've really changed comedy in a way, because the specials are done. Nobody realizes it just yet, but specials are done, and now comics have adopted my blueprint, and I do it for them. This is not like, oh, you're copying me. Like, anything I do is for creators.
Well, and I saw a few. 2 years after your special, Ray Romano is doing effectively the same thing, and it's
but that's a compliment, though, man.
Right.
So
maybe it's parallel thinking. I know that obviously comedians will go from the Cellar to wherever, Village Underground, wherever, and do that. But you were the first person to say, I'm going to take that night and actually turn it into a creation of mine. I'm going to produce this into a creation that we can share, on a screen or digitally.
Dude, what I've realized about just creating in general, and I'm sure you guys have had this, same experience after doing your podcast and putting out your content, having success with it, is like the industry operates with the wind. So whatever direction the wind is flowing, they cast the sail and they go in that direction. Okay? They don't dictate where the industry goes. They follow it, right? They're a sailboat, okay? So if you want to be the motorboat, you have to get underneath the water. The motor from the motorboat is underneath the water. Right. It's not above it. Yeah. And that's how it fights any current. That's how it fights the wind. That's how it fights everything. So for me, my whole shit was, okay, I got to plant the seeds and then these have to grow into the industry. So did Ray Romano see my special and go, I want to do that? No, I assume not. I always assume the best. But did I make it okay for an A-list celebrity to do a special in a 150-seat comedy club? Mm-hmm. Yes, because if they pitched a network that before, they'd be like, why would you do that in this little tiny club? Like, I made that allowable, right? I made that okay because it got millions of views. So they're like, okay, this is fine. I pushed the wind in that direction, right? Yeah. I got the wind flowing. So everything that I'm trying to do now is about getting underneath and letting it grow in. Are you guys familiar with how Nescafe got into the Japanese market?
No.
I know we got to be quick with these, so I'll be quick with the story. So Nescafe talks to this consultant. He's like a super, the most successful consultant in the world with this kind of shit like that. And they're like, how do we get into the Japanese market? And the guy goes, I looked at the culture. I looked at the people. You're not going to be able to get in there for 15 years. And he's like, what are you talking about? He goes, they have no concept of coffee. You're trying to be tea. You're not tea. They have no understanding of what coffee is. They have no memories attached to coffee. It means nothing to them, right? What you're going to have to do is you're going to have to spend millions of dollars making a cartoon, make that cartoon popular. Then you're going to make a candy based on that cartoon. That candy is going to be flavored like coffee. 15 years from now, when these kids are grown up, they're going to love that fucking coffee.
Wow.
Go to Japan right now.
Yeah.
And show me, and just take a look at what they're drinking. Devouring coffee like never before.
It absolutely is. It's like this the single origin pour over cold brew nitro, like that is, that kind of swept the nation a few years ago. Coffee, but over in Japan, it's nuts. It absolutely is.
And that is all. Everything that I'm doing right now, that inside joke show, it's fun for me because I just love talking to comics about jokes. But the seed that I'm growing is, hey guys, this is how we come up with these bits. There's no reason to be offended. It's a puzzle for us. It's a game, right? Yeah. Once you watch the game and watch how we put it together, then when you see an offensive joke on stage, you're not going to be like, how could he say that? You're going to be like, ooh, he's working on it. I see this idea. I've seen those other guys in the restaurant do it. That's probably going to be funny in a few weeks.
Right, and you're not setting out to offend people. You're also not setting out to not offend people either. That offense,
you decide what you get offended by.
And I can't decide you should be offended by this or you shouldn't. You get offended at whatever you want. Maybe it's appropriate, maybe it's not, but that doesn't need to go into the. It's cancerous for the creative process. Of course. When we think we constantly, but like you said, and now we have more access than ever with social media too, like to constantly get little cancer cells responding back to us all the time.
You can't criticize someone. You can't criticize art based on a malleable term, right? So it's like shock. That's just shock value. It's like, yeah. Like look at any painting from the Renaissance. It's shocking. That's what we do. Now here's the thing about being shocked. You know what's shocking to a Muslim dude? If you say Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, that's shocking, right? You know what's shocking to a Jewish guy? If you say Jesus Christ is our Lord and Savior, like this is shocking, wildly shocking, right? So it's like to say you can't be shocking is a stupid argument because you cannot define what you'll be shocked about. To say to a vegan, you're like an omelet, might be shocking. It's a stupid litmus test for what you can and can't say that only stupid people use. Right? It's basically people trying to frame, they're trying to put like a framework on what they do because they know that they're in a safe. They're like, hey, this is the safe space I operate in. And anything outside of space shouldn't be done. So you're trying to be like the NBA or the NFL and be like, there's only 29 teams. Sorry, guys.
Right.
You got to play in here.
And what you've realized is you no longer need the permission slip. And Ryan and I realized this early on. Actually, we'll talk about that more on the Maximal episode.
Well, let me get two tweetable answers in here real quick. The first one is, Austin, if you're true to yourself, you needn't wallow in rejection. And I think you're a great example of this, man. It's like you stayed true to yourself. You didn't be like, oh, I didn't sell the special. how do I need to alter this next time so I can sell that special next time? And then also, you kind of touched on it a little bit, Andrew, the power to discern between criticism and feedback will help you get the most out of rejection.
Bars.
So you have got to look at what people are telling you and ask yourself, like, are these just critics, or is this valuable feedback? So
I needed that rejection. I just realized it right now. I needed it because I wasn't built to lead yet. Like I wasn't prepared to lead. I needed to have everything stripped. I needed to be zero before I was completely prepared to lead, because once I was okay with zero, now I can give.
Yeah, man.
See what I'm saying?
Plus, the blank slate is like a beautiful place from which to create.
Yes.
You're not trying to say, well, now I'm going to do 551 part 2.
Right.
No, that's a chapter, and you've moved past that. For the sake of time, I'm going to skip past our added value segment, Ryan. I'm going to skip past right here, right now, other than to say we have a bunch of upcoming podcast episodes with Rachel Cruz, Ben Greenfield, TK Coleman, Colin Wright, and Cal Newport, the author of Digital Minimalism. He's coming in. We've done a couple events with him in the past, so you'll be able to check those out coming soon. For this minimal episode, I want to say thanks to Andrew for being here, and check him out at youtube.com.
Check out the new special.
Yeah, check it out. Views from the Sis.
Views from the Sis. It drops every Sunday in March. The intro I dropped, surprise little Beyonce dropped the week before, but every Sunday in March, a new part of it. So I chopped up the special. It takes place in 4 different countries. There's also a tour documentary I did with it that comes out on our Dropping In series. But
so where's the best place to go see that?
youtube.com/the Andrew Schulz.
Okay.
Every Sunday, new clip, 2:00, and we're pushing it, man.
I love it.
We are pushing it, and I think this first one that I'm dropping this Sunday, March 3rd, is I think is the best Trump joke ever written.
Tell us.
That's all I'll say.
All right. Well, we have several more questions. We're going to talk about creative freedom. We're going to talk about moving corporate boundaries. We're going to talk about burnout. I don't know if that's something you've gone through, Andrew. We'd love to talk to you about those. Also, so we have some questions about those. Also, I want to talk to you about content versus meaningful creations and how we delineate the two. And I want to talk about how you've turned some of your rejection into success. And if y'all want to hear all of that, you can listen to this week's Maximal episode, available exclusively on Patreon. That's right, you're currently listening to our weekly Minimal episode. But each week, Ryan and I record an entirely different long-form Maximal episode on the Minimalists private podcast, which gives us the private space we need to be... a little more flagrant, right?
Yeah, believe it or not, it's going to get more flagrant.
When you subscribe to the Minimalist Podcast on Patreon, the private podcast, you also receive a personal link so our Maximal episodes play in your favorite podcast app. Andrew, you got to get your Patreon subscribers onto that, man.
Yeah, what is that?
Yeah. So on Patreon, what you do is once you sign up, you get a private link as a patron.
Okay.
Right? And then whatever podcast player you use, Apple Podcasts, Overcast, Feedly, whatever it is, whatever you're using on your phone, you just paste that link in there and then it automatically downloads all the new episodes. You don't have to go to the Patreon page or Patreon app. You listen to it right there on your phone. You get all the new episodes.
Oh, that's great.
Right there. Yeah, so if you're a patron of ours, you also have access to 100 past episodes, private episodes. You can find all the details and all the good stuff over at theminimalists.com/support. Ryan, what else you got for us?
As always, I just want to encourage people, read more and get informed. And now here are some voicemail comments and tips from our listeners.
Hi, this is Emily Lewis from Baltimore, Maryland, and I have a comment for the episode Reset, specifically the question on how to get alone time as a busy introvert. I am also an INFJ and crave time alone, yet have always been incredibly busy throughout my life and had trouble saying no. I didn't understand why until I read the book Radical Acceptance by Tara Brach, in which she says, "Staying occupied is a socially sanctioned way of remaining distant from our pain. How often do we hear that someone who has just lost a dear one is, quote, doing a good job at keeping busy, end quote. If we stop, we run the risk of plunging into the unbearable feeling that we are alone and utterly worthless." This passage made me realize that while I wanted time to be alone, I was also afraid of it. So I highly recommend this book to everyone.
Hi, my name is Cody, and I'm from Frederick, Maryland. I've always seen the professional photographers who shoot for the big news companies and blogs and all the corporations and their equipment is out of this world, and they can take any picture they want, and they have 3 different bodies and all these expensive lenses. And I have my $400 camera, and I have to get right to the sideline that get a halfway decent picture. But after listening to your podcast, it kind of helped me realize how I can focus on other aspects. I can focus on making sure I organize the picture and use keywords so that it's searchable in the archive, and making sure that I have good communication skills to take pictures of who I need to, and kind of work on everything else except for the picture itself, and how my equipment doesn't really hold me back but actually helps me improve.
All right, y'all, that's it for this episode. You can comment on this episode, youtube.com/theminimalist. If you want our show notes in your inbox, sign up for our email list. Theminimalists.com is the address. You just type in your email address at the top. You'll also receive our Simple Sunday emails each week. And if you leave here today with just one message, we hope it's this: love people and use things, because the opposite never works. Thanks for listening, y'all.
We'll see you next time.
The Minimalists.